Anything with human rights in their name, by the way, or in their mission statement, not to be trusted. I call that a communist buzzword, human rights. They're anti-American in some ways. They're just outright against the First Amendment.
So
but yeah, they're in bed with the U.S. government for sure.
They're in bed with the U.S. government, but they're anti-American.
Oh yeah, definitely. The American government is mostly against us. That's why the American government was against Trump.
For $5, Stardust. Do you love white people?
I love white people.
Nice. That's one thing we agree on.
People of the internet, welcome to Modern Day Debate. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we are debating, is the Great Reset real? We have Stardust crossing swords with James Hake of the Hake Report for your enjoyment. Going first tonight, we have James Hake, so I will turn it over to Hake for his opening statement. Hake, at your first word, I will start the clock. The floor is all yours.
I appreciate it. We have started the stream, is that correct?
I believe so.
Let me pause the timer then.
Hold on one second.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kaz, or Kaz. I don't know how to pronounce it. I appreciate you guest hosting Modern Day Debate, and I really appreciate Modern Day Debate. Nice to meet you, Stardust. Appreciate you joining me here. And shout out to the chat, everybody. The Great Reset, is it real? Yes, it's real, but what is it? It is, to me, it is a bunch of wolves in sheep's clothing trying to manipulate and be all nicey nice with the world, help the poor, you know, the people of color, the minorities, the oppressed, and rich need to take care of all of the poor. I read and watched the video on the Great Reset from the World Economic Forum on their website, and it was, to me, quite cringy. The Great Reset is, as of recently, about the China virus. Some people call it COVID-19, the pandemic. And they're also trying to bring in the climate crisis and just exploit any crisis. They always say, the socialists, as I call them sometimes, like to say, never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's what they're doing. It's for power, it's for money, it's an influence grab. And it's also a whole lot of ego involved with these people. They pretend to care about vulnerable populations. And I say it's pretense. Some of them may sincerely have like this emotion toward them and do things that do benefit them in some form or other. But they love for these people to stay vulnerable. It's sort of a mama spirit that these people have, where by helping them, they're enabling them to stay in a bad situation, and not be independent or self-sufficient. So they can swoop in and quote unquote save them and have power over them and falsely guilt the other people, the rich or whatever, to extend the problems, you know, that they themselves really help bring about. I argue that a lot of the shutdowns for the virus were unnecessary and caused more problems than they started. The reaction to the supposed climate crisis has caused more problems than it's solving. They rope in all of these huge, what I call commie-capitalist companies like Amazon, which is evil, very anti-American company. Google, which is evil. Alex Jones himself said it, and it's true. Major banks, financial corporations, pharmaceutical companies, Facebook, Meta, PayPal, Pepsi, Black Lives Matter supporting, America subverting, many countries subverting. George Soros, his Open Society Foundation, is listed as a strategic partner for the Great Reset or for this World Economic Forum. Salesforce, Coca-Cola, Uber, Unilever, everything evil that pretends to be like benign is what they are. And these are the types who push this women's equality mess, which is very divide and conquer in its approach. The gay agenda, the transgender mess, so-called anti-racism, which is such a phony lie, telling the rich to subsidize the poor. They promote, it's a false religion, basically, is what these people have. They're the same ilk as what I call the evil UN, United Nations, who like to meddle in America or want to meddle in America's affairs. They call America racist using the very fake news of the Black Lives Matter narrative. They're just evil. Total lies. They're not. So these people, I argue, are not to be trusted, even without getting into the nitty gritty of the things that they want. Because you can be fooled into like going along with some of this stuff because they pretend they're very intellectual and they will trick you and you'll find yourself rationalizing and going along with a lot of what they say. And then you're basically making deals with the devil, which you should avoid as much as possible, you know. Anything with human rights in their name, by the way, or in their mission statement, not to be trusted. I call that a communist buzzword, human rights, or like this globalist socialist buzzword. Some people call it globo homo, what they push. Globalist homogeneity, I believe, is what that's short for, is not morally straight. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, like I said. Centralized power is a bad idea. Local power, local authority, self-sufficiency, these are things to be valued and defended, not this power grab. These people have a idea and they pretend that it's just about coordination, efficiency, saving lives because of, easy flow of information and authoritative mandates and things like that. But I don't think that that's a wise idea because they don't know what the locals are dealing with. And they repeat false narratives like the Black Lives Matter thing with the UN example. So there was one weird line that came out of this Great Reset push by the World Economic Forum. I believe it was something like, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, I think that the founders of America, or, the early forefathers of America, they tried stuff like this, I heard, where they owned everything in common and they would starve sometimes, some winters. People were starving. And then they tried, you know what? Everybody has to own their own thing. When you own your own thing, you take care of it better. And that's not something that it's how human nature works. It's not something that they take into account. Either that or they want to own everything. So the Great Reset, I say, is real and it's evil. And anybody repeating this Build Back Better line, oh my gosh, it's so phony. I think it's an appeal to like a fallen state sort of listening to Satan female-minded mindset that both men and women fall into. And it appeals to both the emotion and it appeals to the intellect and the ego and pride and this false idea of, oh, I'm helping people. We are helping people. We care about people. And no, you don't. I mean, it's not genuine. So to me, it's all very phony. And so, yes, the Great Reset is real, but it's pushed by some of the most phony people that you can think of.
All right. Thank you so much, James Hake, for the Hake Report. And we will turn it over to Stardust for her opening statement. At your first word, Stardust, I will turn it over to you. The floor is all yours.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So first off, hello, everybody. Hello, Kaz. Hello, Hake. Thank you guys so much for agreeing to do this with me. Okay. So firstly, the Great Reset is a term that has been appropriated by conspiracy theorists. It has come to represent a mishmash of nearly every conspiracy you can imagine. It's anti-vax, anti-climate change, civil war denying, QAnon loving, election stealing, immigration hating, Russia supporting, globalism hating, 5G fearing, 9/11 truthing, Sandy Hook unmasking, and chemtrail inhaling panic. And its all-encompassing nature allows believers to look at any comment by anyone they dislike as evidence of proof that their pet part of the theory is absolutely, unequivocally, totally 100% true. And it's all coordinated by the evil World Economic Forum. My debate partner, Hake, is no stranger to some of these theories. He thinks that the World Economic Forum is in bed with or has tricked many commie-capitalist major companies to support them so they can carry out their nefarious plots. What the World Economic Forum is an international non-governmental lobbying organization. They state their mission as improving the state of the world by engaging in business, political, academic, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. They're known for their get-togethers, a bunch of billionaire nerds who go to Davos to party and monologue to each other about world issues. Similar to the slumber parties I went to when I was 9 years old, except a lot more people reading from their diaries. And what is the Great Reset, really? What it is a boring book written by a man who runs elitist TED Talks in famous locations that he names after his books. And because of his love of flowery language, the absolute craziest people have given his intellectual circle jerk monologues the craziest possible interpretation. Because the book is pretty bland, the conspiracy is so broad and has hooks in it, so many aspects of modern conspiracy, I have no idea which angle he's going to take. Is he anti-vax? Does he believe the election was stolen? He's going to need to show that not only are these conspiracies real, but that they're all connected to make a case that this is some kind of great reset.
All right, thank you so much, Stardust, for your opening statement. And let me just go ahead and say, I want to let everybody know, especially if this is your first time here at Modern Day Debate, that we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. And we want you to feel welcome no matter what walk of life you're from. If you have a question or comment for one of tonight's debaters, please fire it into the old live chat. And please be sure to tag me at Modern Day Debate. Super chats will go to the top of the list, and we ask that you please be sure to keep it civil. Attack the argument and not the person, as insults will not be read. And that goes for general discourse in the live chat as well. Our invaluable moderators are working tirelessly to elevate the conversation, so please show them, the debaters, and each other the respect of not hurling personal attacks and insults. Our guests are linked in the description below, whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast. So please check them out if you like what you're hearing. And don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to show James some love and support the channel if you like hearing debates. He has another debate coming up tomorrow with Matt Dillahunty and Abdullah Andulasi on whether or not there is good evidence for God. So please be sure to check that out. And with that, we're going to go ahead and kick it into the open discussion for 1 hour. And I will let you guys have the floor at your first word.
All right. I appreciate it. In response, Stardust, you brought up that these, and I appreciate you using my term, commie-capitalist companies, are doing the will of the World Economic Forum. But I like to clarify that I will have you know that I well know, and I think you do too, that these companies are not for what's right, even without the behest of the World Economic Forum. But seeing them all together, I mean, you see them kind of go out in unison with everything that goes, that becomes the current thing, as people say. Mm-hmm. You saw them all supporting the Black Lives Matter thing. Many of them, they support the the gay pride thing, for example, every year. They push we support Ukraine stuff. So they're very they try to be very palatable to what's trendy in the mainstream media and I guess with many of the normal people. So it's not as though they're doing the bidding of World Economic Forum. It's just that all of the key players, I don't know any of them that are decent, the ones that I rattled off, Amazon, Google. I don't even think that you're necessarily fans of many of these or what they're about. I don't know why you would. I don't know if you trust these people or if you just think that they're irrelevant or what.
Well, what I would say is that most companies are going to act in ways that are beneficial to their monetary goals, right? Most companies are going to do that. That's just like the nature of a company. What I don't see is that being evidence for them all being coordinating in some massive global cover-up, in massive global coordinated effort to cause and stake fear into people over the coronavirus, things like that. So, yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily even a coordination. It's a corrupt culture. You know how a lot of people say that racism, for example, it's not a conspiracy, many of them say. It's a corrupt culture where it's just what we're born and bred in is their theory about things. Well, that's similar to how I feel about, for lack of better word, the side of evil. I grant that there's evil on all sides of politics, right? Even among the people who are not for this globalism and all that stuff. There's evil works in everybody. But it's very trendy, and it's very just, when you follow the crowd, you're going to end up supporting stuff that you're not thinking for yourself. It's evil that you're supporting. And these people, like, I'm not saying that they're necessarily coordinating. I'm sure that I imagine that there is some secretive stuff that goes on, of course, in any company, in any meeting, in any interpersonal relationship. There's some stuff that's secret, whether that's nefarious or not. But these people are openly out in the open evil. And I know that a lot of the stuff that I named are things that you may support. Like, I don't know if you support the Black Lives Matter stuff or the LGBT stuff or the women's equality stuff or this or that or this or that, the fake human rights thing. But these people are, do you, when you look at these corporations, I mean, you said that they act in the interests of money, but they also get pushed around. They have no people have no spine. These are made up of people, and people are weak. They are pushed around by their own employees, by the media, by activism. Go ahead.
I think that we're kind of getting off track already. Basically, regardless of whether I think that companies are evil or not, it doesn't really like have anything to do with the Great Reset, right? So
it does, though.
How does it have anything to do with the Great Reset?
Because these companies are all in support of this same mission of helping the poor, of helping the marginalized communities and all that stuff. They're on the same mission, and these are the companies that are behind.
Is it coordinated or not coordinated? Because you were saying it wasn't coordinated.
I don't care whether it's coordinated or not. Isn't that
part of the Great Reset? Like,
no.
That's kind of an integral for the Great Reset, right? For it to be coordinated.
Coordinated in the sense that, yeah, they coordinate. I mean, they want to coordinate, but you mean like secretly, subversively done behind the scenes, and
secretly or in open, right? It's coordination, right?
Well, there's clear coordination. They're all supporting the World Economic Forum, and you see them out in the open supporting this. They all basically campaigned against the Trump administration. All these companies did.
Okay. How did they campaign against the Trump administration?
Like no other election that I'd ever seen. You saw SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram, Google doing this get out the vote thing, and they're pushing it to the young people. They're trying to expand it so every idiot can vote by mail-in vote, or you can go to any precinct. You don't have one assigned precinct like under normal circumstances. There was this all this melodrama.
How does that have to do with then the Great Reset? Can you tie it back to the Great Reset?
Not specifically to the Great Reset, but it was in part a taking out of Trump, who was nationalist and not so globalist necessarily. He was for America's interests. He was for what's right. He wasn't as phony in pushing the gay agenda, and he was very pro-woman, and he was nice to the gays, and he was nice to the blacks, but he wasn't their guy, and that's for sure. He was more for America, for what's right. He told the simple, plain truth, and they hated him for it. They didn't want another 2016 to happen, I think a Google employee said, and they made sure it didn't happen.
What I would say is that in response to this like gay agenda, women's agenda, LGBTQ agenda, wouldn't it just be more likely that they're responding to what's popular and what societies want, rather than them really coordinating regardless of that, right? Like it makes more sense to me that they would be responding to society, because what society wants is going to give them more money. And why would you hurt your monetary income like that?
Well, honestly, an ethical company wouldn't be all about money. A moral company would not just be all about money. So I think that's why I partly call it this commie capitalism thing, because these people are, it's not that the broader society wants all of this stuff necessarily. They're definitely being pushed more than the society is. And it's part of it is because the people in the media, the people in the marketing departments, the people in the HR departments, the people in Hollywood they tend to be far more off the deep end liberal and just ridiculous than the normal broader society. So that without a doubt, they're forcing it down people's throats. I don't know how you can claim that it's just responding. They're responding to one another, pushing each other more towards evil. So yeah, they're being pushed around and they're responding in that sense, but they're not responding to like normal people. It's just like the government. They forced the same-sex marriage thing down our throats. Even in California, we voted against it popularly. They've done that in every way. They don't mind grabbing power by hook or by crook.
Yeah.
And pushing and changing the culture by hook or by crook.
So what I'm getting from this is that it's not really related then to the Great Reset, what you're talking about, or is it?
How not?
How okay, so what is the Great Reset agenda, and why is it different than just responding to consumers?
The Great Reset agenda is about, what I gather from it, it's about pushing this rich needs to help the poor, the rich need to help the poor, the whites need to help the POCs, the overserved need to help the so-called underserved. In reality, the underserved are overserved more often. And we need coordination and centralization of power and centralization of, opening the lines of communication and all that stuff. So it's an information grab, it's a power grab, it's an ego boost for them. They like seeing other people. They like having influence in the world. Anybody likes that, especially when they have a pride issue going on.
Okay. So you're talking about centralized power, and you're saying that basically it's a move to centralize power and coordinate that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to push their agenda, the anti-racism, the woman thing. These are not decent companies. These are not decent people.
If the companies are pushing though for like things that maybe they're not doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, but they're doing it and the end outcome is good, why should anybody really care then?
What end outcome has been good from any of the stuff that they've pushed?
Well, I mean, it
We've
seems
had
like they're
economy
pushing
destroyed.
Well,
We've had the economy destroyed. We've had
let her answer your question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So well, you're talking about them advocating for like the rich helping the poor, for example.
Yeah.
Why should we not be okay with that? And my second question also would be, what should we do about it?
The rich freely help the poor, and them getting involved, they're not doing it in the right way. You'll notice that the war on poverty has never really ended. It's been only enabling them to. I mean, we have homelessness out of control. So it's the same type of liberal mentality that panders and spoils the so-called poor in America is what they want all across the world. And so that's not right. They shouldn't have any say over other people's money.
Okay, so would you so for a solution to that, would you say that government should get involved with this and like tell them to not do that, or what?
I think America in particular, the people should totally reject. I think that we should push to get out of the UN or really overhaul it. We should get out of these world so-called leader partnerships that we're in where we get pushed around and told to basically redistribute our wealth to so-called poor countries for the climate crisis and for the China virus stuff, because these people are not to be trusted.
How's the UN related, though, to World Economic Forum?
They're all for the same thing. The UN, the World Economic Forum, and all that.
They're all for the same thing. But they're all, if you're saying that they're all for the same thing, but the UN encompasses like countries that like still execute gay people, right?
And
if they're all for the same thing, like this pushing of like progressive
that's not the push of the UN, and you know that though.
Well, you were just saying, you were talking about the push of progressive policies and of sharing of wealth, right? There are so many countries in the UN that don't push that.
But countries in the UN that don't push that, supposedly, that doesn't mean that that's not what the UN is about. The UN has this, like I told you, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they tried to accuse America of human rights violations for their treatment of black people, which is a total joke. So I don't know how you don't know that the UN is part of the same false do-gooder mindset as the World Economic Forum types. Had you heard of that? That they tried to accuse America of human rights violations?
I think I may have heard vaguely of something like that, but yeah, I don't know that that's really, again, proving anything with the Great Reset to me, right?
It's part of the same thing. The Great Reset people, in their thing, they said, oh, the blacks are suffering disproportionately from the China virus. It's systemic racism is getting exposed all the more. The vulnerable people are suffering all the more because of this. But it has nothing to do with that. But they claim that it is. So they're the same ilk, is what I'm arguing.
Okay. So the United States should leave the UN. What should the United States do about the World Economic Forum then?
Stay out of it. Not be so in bed with these companies, because I say that these are commie-capitalist companies, not just because of what they push and the lies that they are forcing to subvert our culture, but also because they are in bed with the government. They try to push around the government. You'll see some of these companies try to change the laws to be more SJW friendly and less family friendly, less Christian friendly against white people. So we should basically take a hard stand against these, maybe bring back some anti-American activities type proceedings against these companies and hold them a little bit more responsible for the cultural rot that they have pushed.
Okay, so the U.S. isn't in bed with companies in the World Economic Forum?
Oh yeah, they are. Google? Are you kidding me?
Well,
Meta?
These are private.
Facebook?
They're private companies and citizens who partake voluntarily in membership with the World Economic Forum.
Well, I'm arguing that they are pushing evil, whether or not they're part of the World Economic Forum, and they are part of the World Economic Forum, and they're not. And Meta, which is Facebook, and Google, which is Alphabet and evil, and YouTube, those are not private companies. They're in bed with the government. They have all kinds of subsidies and deals with the government. They are kind of like doing the bidding of the government, or the government's doing the bidding of them. They're very much involved financially and in many other ways. They have huge lobbies. It's kind of naive to say that. It comes off as naive for you to say that they're just private companies. You know what I mean?
Are you saying that they're like nationalized companies then?
They're international, definitely. They're anti-American in some ways. They're just outright against the First Amendment.
So
they're in bed with the U.S. government for sure.
They're in bed with the U.S. government, but they're anti-American.
Oh yeah, definitely. The American government is mostly against us. That's why the American government was against Trump. It's not like the government is not of the people, really. It's of maybe like a third of the people who are like the most. Well, Well, I mean, the people are weak. The people are corrupt. So in that way, I do grant you that it does reflect the people in many ways. But let's be honest, the government is not for, let's say, for example, the Trump supporters or the people who've, both Democrats and Republicans who for decades have wanted strong borders and to get rid of the illegal aliens from the country. And the government has not done that. It's done like the opposite of that.
And you
It's
think the
brought
World
in more
Economic
immigrants.
Forum has taken a part in that then?
They would definitely cheerlead that. That's for sure. They want this open borders type thing, free flow of migrants. They want to take care of refugees, and they also want to take care of the people within cities who are also supposedly left on the outs. So I don't know that they've taken part in that directly, but they are cheerleading that. They would definitely be supportive of more of that, which is what these companies are. These companies are for open borders and anti-Trump, anti-strong anti-immigration policy. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were going to demonstrate like a way in which the World Economic Forum is influencing these companies to be in bed with the United States government, to influence policy within the government, how would you do that then?
I don't know nor care that much that the World Economic Forum is influencing these companies to do that. They're doing it on their own. It's in many cases in their corrupt self-interest to have the cheap labor of mass immigration. You've heard stories, I'm sure, where they've had outside, even like high-skilled workers come in, and these American workers train their outside worker replacements. So there's been a big push, and also these people are liberals, and so they want the Democrat voters coming in and to raise anchor babies who then
so if it's
vote
not
for them
related to the World Economic Forum, then it's not related to the Great Reset.
Well, it clearly is, because that's what the Great Reset is about too. It's just another player in the game, is how I see the Great Reset stuff. You're right.
So,
I don't see the World Economic Forum as a central player necessarily. But when you look at all these companies, they're clearly major. Companies are clearly major players, including the George Soros company and all of them. But yeah, Amazon, Google, Unilever, Coca-Cola.
I guess I'm just confused. I'm a little bit confused at the
Sure.
point, because the Great Reset is something that's specifically like been talked about by the World Economic Forum, and
Yeah.
you're saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be that these companies are in coordination and they're being influenced by the World Economic Forum, and by that, the Great Reset. So I'm confused as to like what the point is here about the Great Reset that you're trying to make.
Oh, okay. My primary argument is that none of the players involved in the Great Reset are for what's right. They're for what's evil. And that's been demonstrated for decades in some cases. In the last several years, especially, they've kind of come out of the woodwork and come out of hiding. They're just openly supporting every kind of evil. What is evil?
Mm-hmm.
Examples of evil would be to pretend wrong is right, like the gay agenda, calling wrong right and right wrong. This women's equality thing. It's just putting women in charge of things and just having things be totally upside down. Just illogical, just emotional, intellectual, false leadership.
Honestly, it sounds like you're making a very emotional argument here yourself. I don't see the logic in this argument. I've asked if you can demonstrate the connection between the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, and these companies and the government, and you haven't been able to say that, but you say it's basically, what it sounds like to me is that you're operating off of your feelings rather than logic.
How so? How have I not demonstrated? I've clearly demonstrated that all those different things are connected in different ways.
I'm not sure how. I've asked a couple of times now to demonstrate how it's connected to the World Economic Forum, and you've kind of almost in some
Are
cases.
you not aware that those companies are strategic partners of the World Economic Forum?
I know that they're partners.
Let's not talk over each other, guys.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that they're partners, but when I've asked if you can demonstrate how beyond them being partners that they're taking part in this great reset and that they're coordinating in these agendas, you have even in some cases said, well, it doesn't even have to be the World Economic Forum, right?
Correct.
Which is like that's even off of the topic. It's like a complete, like we've fallen off of like the train completely then, right?
I think what maybe what you were expecting me to think was, or what you were wanting me or expecting me to think was that this World Economic Forum is the central player.
I don't even think that.
Great reset
but
thing.
We're talking about
and
the great.
Because you made the claim that these companies.
Let's let him respond.
You made the claim that these companies are doing the bidding of or that I would argue that these companies are doing the bidding of the World Economic Forum, when I've said that whether it's part of the independent World Economic Forum or not, these companies are corrupt. They're for what's wrong.
But the Great Reset is specifically something put forward by Klaus Schwab, who is the founder of the World Economic Forum, right?
Right.
So you're saying that it doesn't necessarily have to do with the World Economic Forum.
No, my complaints are not necessarily to do with the World Economic Forum.
The complaints aren't even related to the Great Reset then?
No, they're related by way of the people involved, the players involved. Klaus Schwab is not a decent guy. George Soros, who helped co-found the World Economic Forum, I understand, is not a decent guy. None of these companies have been for what's right. Okay. And the stated goals of the centralization of power, this fake idea of coordinating and all that stuff. We need to now use this power grab to help fight the crisis of climate change. All that stuff. None of that's for what's right.
Okay. So what you're saying is that basically, so what I was expecting, I'm not expecting you to say that the World Economic Forum is like the central power or something like that. What I was expecting was you to argue for the Great Reset, and instead you're arguing that companies are bad. Yeah.
And the companies that are supporting this Great Reset thing are bad. And so that's why we shouldn't be supportive of it. Like, I think you would say that the Great Reset is real, but do you think it's benign?
Well, I explained it in my intro that it's basically a really boring book written by Klaus Schwab that people have overread and overinterpreted into conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't really particularly aware of the book. I had heard something about it back in 2010, right? But it's also the name of the 50th annual, right? Or some annual.
And he names his books after things related to the World Economic Forum and their meetings. So generally they are related. So
the meeting was named after his book, apparently, because the meeting took place 10 years after his book.
He'll coordinate things with his book and stuff like that, or with the books that he writes. But it's a very boring book. And
you read it?
Well, for the few things that I saw in it were really boring. But I didn't read the whole book though. So
I don't blame you.
But it's just a boring book, and I guess I'm just trying to understand. I'm not saying the Great Reset is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's not a coordinated effort by some cabal that's trying to push their agendas on the world. I think that companies generally they do things, they put out messaging that is profitable to them, and it doesn't necessarily have to be part of some coordinated effort.
Well, I say that like I told you before, it's not. Yes, profit is perhaps a motivator, but it's much more than just profit, because they do push a culture and an agenda, and there's no question about that. Like I demonstrated with the basically the makeup of these influential companies, supposedly influential companies. And it's more than just a book. It's the name of their meeting that was took place in June of 2020, which is a few months into the what I call the scam-epidemic, because the shutdowns, I don't think they were necessary. It was like this mama spirit where we kind of broke our economy basically for the primarily, you know, the elderly and the overweight and the, you know, the at-risk people, when they could have protected themselves in other ways. There are many more manly ways to do it and still have a functioning society and life and have freedom and not just give up. But they scared the women, and they scared the it was fear mongering, and Trump was saying, let's not be afraid, live your life. And they called him a liar for it, or they accused him of downplaying it when they were the ones upplaying it. They being, you know, the mainstream media, not necessarily just the World Economic Forum or these companies. So I don't necessarily think that it's coordinated. It's just a corrupt culture. There is some coordination without a doubt going on. The CDC has been, you know, especially very women-led now, scared women-led. She says, I'm scared, this Walensky woman. I know that's getting away from the World Economic Forum, but they're all part of that same culture. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying it's a culture. It
sounds like you want to talk more about the things that you just don't like rather than like the Great Reset itself.
But that's what the Great Reset pushes. Is this shutting down and then now we have to help everybody.
So your problem is not with the World Economic Forum, it's with like the companies that attend it, basically.
Oh, it's with the World Economic Forum as well. It's with all the players, every single player involved. I don't know one that's for what's right or for decency. I don't think that they would let them in, honestly. They try to force. Well, I mean, Trump is one decent man in the government, and they had to force him out. And you've seen that over and over, Congressman Steve King. So it is coordination, but it's also a whole culture. So I'm not calling it a conspiracy theory. I'm calling it a corrupt culture, and they're part of it.
Okay, so I'm still looking for I guess how the Great Reset meeting had anything to do with like the progressive agendas that we see or progressive messaging that we see companies doing in the US.
Well, they're all in line with one another. You'll notice that the progressive companies right now are targeting Governor Ron DeSantis's the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill, according to them. They're all part of this push against the Christians, against the whites, against the men, logical thinkers.
Trump was at the World Economic Forum in 2020, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Does that make him for it?
I don't know. Maybe he's in coordination too.
No, I wouldn't think so. He seems like, I mean, a lot of people do think that he was part of it. They think, oh, he became a vax pusher. He's a vaccine salesman. He's part of them. He's a Trojan horse. But I don't think that. I think he's pretty genuine in how he is.
Are you sure you're not being woman-brained right now?
Why? What's woman-brained about
I'm still
what
waiting
you
for
see?
the connection. I'm still waiting for the
what connection?
The connection with all of these companies and all of these people and the Great Reset and the and I don't know, like how it's connected to people pushing vaccines and people doing things that are monetarily good for their company, right?
No, I mean, I've said over a couple of times now, they're not just doing stuff that's good for monetarily good for their company. There is that involved, but I don't know I don't really get. I think you're trying to play like this thing where I have to show how it's all connected or something. I'm not one of those people who's really into that. You know, this it's all connected type conspiracy. It is connected in that, you know, people generally think alike. Great minds think alike, and so do evil minds think alike. It's a corrupt culture.
Okay.
Yeah, but what What do you want from me?
Basically, it needs to be connected, or it's not a great reset, right? The Great Reset isn't really then what your version of the Great Reset isn't really like real then if there's no connection, right? All you're saying is that a bunch of people got together and made coordinated a meeting, but there's nothing beyond that says that they're coordinating a great reset other than Klaus Schwab talking about his book and promoting his book, his boring book, you know?
Okay, I think I'm getting you. Well, I'm not really interested in. You want me to show the connection? I think I'm better off showing you what I'm more interested in, because I'm not privy to like the secrets or anything, if there are, whatever the secrets are. But I like to look at stuff that's obvious that's going on, that's in concert with what they're about, and I just like to look at evil stuff that's going on. We've seen, the economy's messed up, the supply chain. There's a mess with that, and these are largely because of the overreaction to the China virus. I haven't really talked about the vax push, but that's definitely part of what's messing up people's ability to function.
Is
the mandates and things.
Is
the mandates specifically?
Okay. Are the mandates and the vax push like coordinated by governments, or are they coordinated by companies or organizations? What are they?
I would say it's pushed by control freak, female-minded people from the local to the global level. So I live in Los Angeles, so I see it in the city. Even they're more strict about it in Los Angeles city or county than Governor this week Gavin Newsom guy is, the governor of the state. I'm pointing that way, but it should be that way. But so that's why I say it's a culture, because it's not just coming from the top, although the top is corrupt and they do want more power, but it's a female mindset that wants to control everybody. They get an ego rise out of seeing people wear masks after they tell everybody to wear masks. Imagine if you were to tell people, you got to wear a mask. Imagine the ego boost that you would get from seeing everybody wear a mask. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in control. So that's that mindset. That's the mindset of the push behind the vax mandates, and that's the mindset of these World Economic Forum types. The woman who coordinated the meeting was, oh my gosh, ridiculous.
Okay.
When I saw with the meeting that I watched on the WE Forum website.
Okay.
Did you follow what I said? I talked a lot.
Yeah. I see. So then you're saying it's not so much that. Okay. I think what I'm getting is that it's not so much that the Great Reset is a thing, but it's that people like the World Economic Forum and all these leaders around the world are coordinating because they're all female-brained and they all want to exert their power on people and things like that.
Yeah, and you see it on the local level. You see it in families. You see it in relationships. It's human nature. It's evil human nature. And so, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
okay. All right.
When I say you see it in families and relationships, I'm talking about this feel sorry for false victims, feel sorry for criminals. Let's make the capable take care of the seemingly incapable, controlling, feeling sorry for, and judging. That's what I mean by like in the relationships. And in families, kind of destroying society by pretending to come in, swoop in and save it, causing problems and then swooping in with your false solutions. But maybe you think that they're not false solutions.
Well,
because you seem to think that this will come out in a positive thing, like the rich helping the poor, for example.
It's not so much negative or positive again for me. It's just whether it's coordinated or not. And I don't know that I can say that it's coordinated.
Right.
Because a lot of these world leaders don't get along. I mean, we can't even we initially couldn't even agree on what the information was coming out about the coronavirus, right? Like a lot of different countries were, arguing about what actually is happening, right? China wouldn't coordinate with us in giving us information in an expedient way. We still, even with like Russia, Ukraine stuff going on, we can't get along enough with like Hungary to be able to use their space, I believe their airspace to deliver supplies to people.
Go ahead.
So
Sorry.
what I'm going with, where I'm going with this is that if there's all this coordination with governments to push masks and push vaccines and around the world, and with all these companies to also push these things, and all these companies to push progressive agendas around the world, how come we can't agree on all these other areas?
Well, the two countries that you brought up, China and Hungary, and I'm sure you could probably come up with more examples, but those are not good examples of companies that would be really particularly in concert with the Western commie-capitalist values, because Hungary, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Hungary is sort of nationalist. At least a big chunk of it is. They're not particularly favorable to immigration and refugees. And they're more Christian, I believe, them in Poland. And then China is kind of a major player. They kind of hold a lot of sway against America and with America. And they're trying to protect themselves. They're not even particularly they may be part of the UN, but they're not really part of this Great Reset thing. They're resetting their own people. They're too busy resetting their own people.
Are there not companies that are partaking in this, what you're alleging is the Great Reset? Are there not companies that also do a lot of business in China and have a lot of factories in China and have a lot of workers in China, right? Like these are companies that are that have a lot of presence in China, and you're saying that China is like anti-West, and that they wouldn't coordinate with the rest of the world's leaders because they are anti-West?
Well, partly it's because it's the China virus. It came from China. At least that's what we're told, and I tend to believe it. I tend to believe President Trump when he said it. But China has its own interest in protecting itself from extra responsibility for this virus that they let out on the world. And so that would explain why they're that. These companies who are doing business in China, they're evil in many ways, right? These companies are evil in many ways. They're evil in the so-called Western ways, the Western corruption and cultural rot, but they're also corrupt in that they'll play with whatever China wants to do and do the censorship for their citizens. So it's like multifaceted evil, but they're doing evil here and in China.
Okay, so if China is anti-West, and let's say, like, I think you would say that Russia's anti-West too? Yeah,
I think so.
Okay, so
in a different way.
Okay, if these countries are anti-West or anti-America or anti-US, why wouldn't they? And when there's like this apparently coordinated effort by all these global leaders, why wouldn't they reveal that as like leverage over the United States if they're so anti-United States?
Oh yeah, I don't know that China's as openly antagonistic against us as Putin, but Putin is definitely trying to defend himself and his PR, if you will. He's doing a PR ploy, just like we're doing a PR. I say we. The so-called American media and government is doing a PR ploy against him and in favor of Ukraine. But he has pointed out how we're, canceling J.K. Rowling.
But that's different That's different from companies coordinating and partaking in a coordinated effort to spread progressive values, right?
Right, but you asked me why these companies, I mean, why these countries that are anti-West aren't exposing
They should be
us. They
exposing
are
those
exposing us.
companies, though.
Putin is exposing us.
J.K. Rowling is not an example of a company being exposed for
No,
coordinating.
he's exposing the West. I'm talking about he's exposing because you said that why don't they expose these governments?
Well,
And
yeah,
he's
if the United
exposing
States is in bed with all these companies,
Right.
and these companies are in bed with the World Economic Forum, then it would make a lot of sense for somebody like Putin to reveal all of this to the world, right?
Oh, you're not aware that these companies are in bed with the government and in bed with the World Economic Forum? You think that's like a secret? You don't realize that it's out in the open, that they're openly?
I mean, I know that they're partners, but what does in bed with
Yeah.
mean?
In bed with means that they have a lot of sway in the direction of the government. They have like an outsized. So it's just something that I would think your side would be complaining about if, in years past you probably have been, and maybe to this day. But these companies have major sway in the government, and the government has some sway in the companies. And you've seen cases where I think that like the CDC has wanted some censorship on Facebook, and Facebook has gone ahead and done that censorship for the CDC and stuff like that. So there's been like little, just tip of the iceberg type examples, but it's kind of obvious. Are you not aware that like corporations have major sway in the direction of the country?
Well, that's just lobbying. That's not the Great Reset.
I didn't say it was the Great Reset. I'm talking about influence.
Okay, influence, but that's just lobbying. Still, I don't see the
It's not just
connection.
lobby. Well, okay, you're saying it's just lobbying. It's not just lobbying, but it is lobbying too. Because the example that I said, that's not lobbying. That's like the government directing a company to violate the First Amendment of the people. But yeah, I mean, they all teamed up against Trump. The companies did, the government did, and so yeah. And those so-called world leaders that at the UN and NATO and everywhere else, they hated Trump because he held their feet to the fire.
Okay. So this just sounds like a dislike of lobbying, then.
No, why do you keep on going back to lobbying?
I don't know.
This is way more than lobbying.
It doesn't make how is this the Great Reset?
How is this? Okay, I'm not necessarily talking about the Great Reset. I'm talking about the players involved.
Okay, then what is the Great Reset?
The Great Reset is let's destroy the economy and build it back better. Which is what they did, which is what they're trying to do anyway. They've wrecked the economy, and now they have this crisis that they helped create. And whether they intentionally created it or they're just such female-minded people that they didn't even realize what destruction they were bringing onto these countries, that's what they did. And these local municipalities, like we've seen, they did the destruction, and they swoop in with their solutions and pretend like they're the good guys. I mean, maybe in their hearts they think they are the good guys. Who knows how deluded these people are? That's the Great Reset in my mind. Destroy and rebuild. Let's call the climate thing a crisis and institute all these policies that kill the economy, and let's swoop in and redistribute the wealth and coordinate and grab power.
How are they coordinating together to talk about the climate then? I guess for one example or something like that.
Well, there's the IPCC at the UN. I think it's the International Panel on Climate Change or whatever. They have done a lot with the propaganda about the climate and saying that, oh, we need to do this and that. We need to redistribute America's wealth to these poor countries so that they can manage what's coming, the rising sea levels and all that stuff, greater storms and all this, fires. More people will be displaced. Wars are going to break out. We need mitigation efforts in advance. And then their mitigation efforts are like, the the Green New Deal type stuff, which is globalist socialism and getting rid of manly jobs and things like that.
So the IPCC is the Great Reset?
No, the IPCC is a tool for it. It's definitely pushing the climate propaganda, climate hype, climate hysteria. So yeah, that's one example. The IPCC inside of the UN. Mm-hmm. Did you listen or have you read up any of what they've put out from their meeting or in the book about climate change? I'm sure it's been mentioned repeatedly.
They talk about
we need to extend
change.
the shutdowns. We need climate shutdowns now.
But again, it's just a bunch of, to me, that what this looks like is just a bunch of rich people meet up in Davos and they, have some parties and do some TED Talks to make themselves feel more important. And then they
so cringy.
And then then they go home after that.
For sure. I mean, it's not just rich people. I don't know how rich some of these people are. There are rich, but there's also these people that they call themselves experts, or they call other people experts and bring them in, and they do this world leaders thing. And without a doubt, there's a push to. There's been so-called experts have been quoted as saying, once we finish with the China virus shutdown, we need a climate change shutdown. This has been helpful for the climate. So they want to keep the control going. They being like the female-minded people who are like control freaks, who think that they know better than the people what's best for the people.
Okay, I think.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
I'm trying. But I think I don't know that.
I think that you're wanting coordination, like more coordination and more like nefarious, secretive stuff and like juicy details. I'm not really a conspiracy theory guy. I mean, I don't like using the term because I know I like it, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of times the conspiracy theorists are proven right in different ways, but a lot of times they jump to things that are not. They don't know I like to stick with what I know, and I don't know much, but I can see that some of this is just hype. It's unnecessary, and it's evil. And you called it emotional. I don't know why you would call it my takes emotional exactly.
How does calling something evil? Calling something evil to me seems like kind of an emotional tactic. Yeah, that seems like a very emotional woman brain thing to do. So
do you agree that it's woman brained?
Well, I mean,
I'm
using your vocabulary, right?
All right.
So it's a very female.
Am I bringing you to my side?
Well, I'm a little bit more male brained. I don't know.
It sounds like you're starting to come around. Nice.
I don't know about that one.
So you said that calling something evil seems like an emotional argument. Is it because when I call something evil, it elicits an emotional reaction from you or from other people? Or is it because you think that I'm being emotional in calling it something evil?
I think you're being emotional in calling it evil. I don't really have a view. I don't call things evil or good because I feel like these are things that people base off of like their individual morality rather than like looking at things from a very logical, and people get very, very emotionally connected to their individual like moral compass and what they base their morals off of.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's why I think that this Great Reset thing is evil, because they are taking their false morals and pushing it on the rest of us. They think that they need to fight this racism thing, and they call that.
So you're doubling down on the female-minded tactic, then.
Say that again.
You're doubling down on the female-minded tactic, then.
My female-minded tactic of calling evil what it is.
Well,
is that what you're saying?
I mean, playing, I guess like going with your emotions and calling things evil rather than demonstrating why they're evil, right?
Well, okay. Let me attempt to demonstrate why, like the women's equality thing or the Black Lives Matter thing is evil. Just maybe a couple of examples.
Well, I think she wants to know exactly what can you define how women-minded is evil?
Oh,
women-minded.
It's more like, what about the Great Reset is evil and why is it evil? How is it evil?
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. One good thing that I have learned about America and American politics is that local control tends to be better than federal control. We've seen examples where they have hate crimes legislation, and that has been very divisive and conquering sort of tactic. You've seen a rash of people perpetrating fake hate crimes, and that, I argue, is evil. It's an attack. Usually these fake hate crimes are to smear Trump supporters and white people or Christians or whatever. And so that's evil, because they're perpetrating, by doing a fake hate crime, they're perpetrating a real hate crime, if you really believe in that concept, against the whites or against the Trump supporters or against the Christians. So, and you'll see over and over and over again, this is way more common than not, where a black or a gay or somebody will do like a swastika on the side of a church, or put the N-word in a college building, and then they have all this, or repost like a KKK picture flyer in schools or whatever. Over and over they do it, and very rarely are they really even punished for this. So that has been a false motivator prompted by this fake idea of hate crimes, and that's been pushed by the federal government in order to just meddle with the local stuff. So local control, you have more direct, it's a logical thing, more direct recourse with the person who is controlling you. If you can confront the person, hey, I don't like your policies. You can't confront somebody in DC or at the UN or even at the state level. It's difficult to. So local control is better. The World Economic Forum seems to be for the opposite of that. So that's one like logical thing that the World Economic Forum is kind of against. They might claim that they're not, and then they're for this anti-racism thing, pretending that blacks are victims and the POCs are victims and whites are oppressors. They definitely push that. They pretend that the black disproportionate suffering from the virus is a result of systemic racism and stuff like that. So they're pushing lies. Lies, I say, are evil. And they're pushing anger. Anger, I say, is evil, no matter who it's coming from. So that's what I mean by evil. Women, this women's equality thing, it's only
I'm going to try to turn it over to
division.
Stardust real soon.
Yeah.
Okay. So you follow what I mean by evil? Lies, anger, false division. Those are examples of evil. And then the centralized power thing, which is centralizing power is a corrupting influence. So that's evil too.
Okay. Lies, power, centralizing power.
Mm-hmm.
These are all evil. Okay.
And anger.
And anger is evil.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How is the Great Reset evil?
Well, I mean, Stardust, why don't you go ahead and just wrap it up and give
right.
closing thoughts. Let's not ask him any questions.
Okay. So it seems that Hake believes the Great Reset is when things happen in the world. If that's the definition, he's taken the position that everything that happens that isn't slowly and deliberately explained to Hake is part of the Great Reset and evidence of a conspiracy, even though he says it's not conspiracy. That level of paranoia, magical thinking, and fear of the authoritarian global elites must be exhausting. I believe that the Great Reset is a failed attempt at branding what business owners have been realizing since the 80s. Firms have a self-interest in maintaining healthy, productive communities and a healthy, sustainable Earth because that leads to making more money. Billionaires who fly to space instead of feeding their employees are a problem, but they're assholes, not a conspiracy.
All right. Thank you so much, Stardust, for your closing statement. We're going to go ahead and kick it into the Q&A, and I do have my questions here ready to go. So I just want to thank you both for this discussion. This was a great conversation, and I had fun. And I want to thank everybody for sending in these questions. So let's go ahead and get to it. For $5, Stardust, do you love white people?
I love white people.
Nice. That's one thing we agree on.
All right. The next super chat from pseudonym for $5 at Hake. Did you really say the rich don't have to help the poor? What's your problem against Amazon/Google, who are rich, not helping the poor when you're against it?
Repeat that last part of the question. What's my problem with Amazon and Google not helping the poor when they're against it?
What's your problem against Amazon/Google, who are rich, not helping the poor when you're against it? That's verbatim.
Okay. So I don't know if he worded it the way that he meant it, or he or she, but Amazon definitely is evil. They and Google definitely are evil, apart from whether or not they're helping any poor. I did say that the rich do not have this obligation to help the poor. I did say that. And often the help is actually hurting.
I do have a question.
Interesting point. Yeah, go ahead, Stardust.
You kept talking about male-brained and female-brained, or male-minded and female-minded. What do you think about like trans people? Do you think that like, is that a supportive argument that people are trans?
No. So I haven't really said male-minded. I say female-minded, like a fallen state female-minded. Where I get that is in the fall of man, right? Under Adam and Eve. Adam was supposed to be listening to God and Eve was supposed to be following Adam. But instead, Eve listened to the serpent and the man listened to the woman who was listening to the serpent. So it was all inverted. So it's upside down. And that's what we have in society today. As far as the transgender people, it's a delusion. I can sympathize that people have their issues, but that's not the way to go. Supporting people in their delusions, it's not good. It's so counterproductive and so wrong. It's such a disservice to them. But that's the female mindset, is feeling sorry for them and supporting them in their delusion rather than supporting them out of it, or helping them stay in the closet. I know you have this issue, but have some dignity and respect. Follow that?
Isn't fear and staying in the closet more female-minded?
It is if it's fear, but yeah, you should not worry about your reputation. If somebody is so evil that they want to out you as a trans or a homosexual or whatever, that's on them. You should not be afraid of being exposed, but you should also have the respect to hide your issues. So being in the closet is not necessarily a fear or female-minded thing. Being in the closet is a proper way of having what might be described as shame, but it's also just having respect and hiding your issues and not inviting other people's. In some ways, yes. In some ways, for sure. Maybe it's not the best word. I don't know, but dignity. Some people say that our private body parts are our shame. Hide your shame, We wear clothes, and that's hiding our shame. So that's the kind of shame. It's more like a logical, common decency type of shame than I can't bear to let this thing get out type of shame. If somebody exposes you, they're so evil that they're gonna, the Deadline people that out closeted homosexuals supposedly. That's evil, but it's not the end of the world if somebody does that to you. You just go on and live your life. You don't have to respond to that mess.
Are you telling them then to lie about if somebody asks them when they're outed out of the closet?
That might be a time to lie. Yeah, you should, because
I thought lying was evil, though.
No, not necessarily, especially if it's. I mean, in all honesty, trans.
I do think we should move on, guys.
Okay.
One last quick point: trans and homosexual is not their identity. It's not who they are, nor is it what they are. It's just an issue that they're into right now.
$4.99 super chat from Sausage Lord. Mr. Hake, can you please lead us in prayer and banish the evil from Stardust's soul, and also tell the homeless to get to work or starve?
Nice. I wish. I shall strive for that. Thank you for the prayer request.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you love brown people?
Yes.
Okay.
If I love anyone, I love brown people.